And we'll call the hearing on 215 to order and ask the prime sponsor to come up now that the microphone is on.
I think we're all getting used to the microphones, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
I'm a slow learner.
Municipalities to adopt a tax credit for qualified private community property owners. Mr. Chairman, this bill came forward because of a lot of work that's been done on this issue. And it hasn't been just this year. There's been a long time effort to address the problems that individuals that buy into these, usually they're 55 and older communities, and the roads are considered to be private roads, and they're responsible for the upkeep of those roads. But oftentimes what happens is because of the standards that are used for the completion of these roads, they tend to fail very quickly. And then that task of repairing those roads fall upon the people that live in that community. And oftentimes, these other members of the community use these roads. Sometimes they're cut-throughs to get to another place, or people just travel those roads. The other issue is the fact that these folks already in their property taxes are paying for the maintenance of the town roads as well. So this has become a burden to many of these folks. I know that I have received a lot of email, and I have asked these folks to send their emails on to the committee so they can hear from folks about the unnecessary costs that they've had to maintain these roads. And it's just not repairing them. They're responsible for plowing and all those other things that those of us that are homeowners, we pay for in our taxes. So essentially they're paying twice, they're paying double. So I will conclude my testimony, and there are many folks here from a variety of homeowners associations that would like to talk with you and will be able to answer your questions. So I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Questions from committee members?
If I may, thank you, Senator Carson. Are you aware of a bill, similar subject matter, that Senator Birdsell filed that would create a fund for savings for those capital improvements in the long term? And do you see these two as companions, or do you see conflict?
Thank you for the question. Senator Birdsell and I have worked on this issue, so I'm well aware of the bill. We divided them up between the two of us, and I think that the two of them would mesh well together. We're hoping that we can get both of them passed and get these folks some tax relief.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no additional questions, thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
And NHPVRTA John Goglia? I tried.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you. My name is John Goglia. I'm here to represent myself, my private road community in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and the New Hampshire Private Road Taxpayers Alliance, which is a statewide nonprofit organization that was created specifically to advocate for tax fairness and equity for private road residents throughout the state. We currently represent almost 500 individuals statewide in almost 90 different cities across the state of New Hampshire. And I'm here to support SB 250 and ask for your approval of SB 250 for many reasons. SB 250 is enabling legislation allowing municipalities to grant a tax credit to qualified residents as determined by those municipalities. The individual residents would have to apply for that tax credit every year. This is not a retroactive tax credit. This is meant to rectify the imbalance of taxes paid by private road residents who do not receive the same municipal services as public road residents. By way of example, in my community for the year 2021, we had snow removal charges, $65,000, street lighting, $340, fire hydrant rental, $14,500, for a total of almost $80,000, which works out to, we have 98 homes on 5 different private roads covering about 1.3 miles. Works out to a little over $800 per year per unit for those charges. I'm here to tell you that for decades, we think that the municipalities have been broadening the definition of private roads, basically to benefit themselves and the developers benefit also. Municipalities grant waivers and variances to developers to make it impossible for private roads to become public roads as they set their own road standards. The development and the approval of private roads has increased dramatically in recent years to the benefit of the developers and the municipalities. In addition, the private road quality is highly suspect, as neither the developer nor the municipality has ever has any legal or financial responsibility. In my own community, we've spent recently $4,365 to repair 2 of our 5 roads that are in serious disrepair, probably due to inadequate construction. And we're looking at a very substantial cost of between $80,000 to $100,000 to replace those roads after only 7 years. I want to say that private road residents, as a private road resident, we knew that our roads were private when we bought there, but we don't realize the full ramifications of everything until you're there for a few years and you realize you're going to come up short. You need to have more money put aside. What we really never realized at the beginning is that our property taxes would be the same, or in many cases more than what people on public roads pay. We think that municipalities have created a very unfair tax situation, and they should be held accountable to fix this situation. That's why we think that by passing SB 250, the state has no responsibility at all, and the burden gets put back to the municipalities to resolve this at no cost to the state. These municipalities have realized huge tax benefits for decades, and we think it's time to rectify this injustice. So we're asking that you pass SB 250 and send it to the full Senate. I thank you very much.
Questions from committee members? I do have a couple questions. As I am a member of the Assessing Standards Board, I certainly have discussed it with a lot of the people on that board, and they said, well, a lot of people who are on a private road, knowing that when they purchase the property, don't pay as much for that property, therefore your taxes are already reduced, so that doing this would be a double credit towards you. How would you respond to those questions?
I would say, just based on my own community and talking to other communities around the state, that that's not true at all. I think that it would depend on the type of community, where it's located. You know, it's located on a lake or in a very nice community, you pay just as much, if not more, for that. I don't know that anybody thinks that they're getting a break by buying on a private road.
The other argument I hear, let me see how to phrase this, well, I'll delay that question until after. Anyone else have a question? Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Lou from CAILAC. Thank you, Lou.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Good to be seen, sir. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Lou Gargiulo, and I reside in Hampton Falls. I'm the CEO and founder of Great North Property Management located in Exeter. My firm employs 150 people and is responsible for the management of more than 25,000 condominium and homeowner association units that house over 75,000 people. I am here today in support of HB 250. In the spirit of full disclosure, I'm wearing several hats in support of this legislation. They include, one, as a member of the Community Association Institute, New Hampshire LAC, two, as the CEO and founder of a firm that manages thousands of properties in community associations, and three, as a property owner of a second home in Alton that would benefit from this legislation. For your information, approximately 265,000 New Hampshire residents living in 107,000 homes reside in more than 2,200 New Hampshire community associations. If enacted, this bill could help a portion of those residents. I'm sure when speaking to your constituents who live in community associations, you're asked if it is fair that my town provides very few services to my association and yet I pay the same tax rate, and my valuation is consistent with other similarly situated homes in my town that receive all of the public services. In response, the stock answer has been, it was considered when the project was approved and the developer received some benefit or concession. That response is a distinction without a difference. If you attempt to research these project approvals, you will find that little or no documentation supports that response. The New Hampshire Lakes region is an excellent example of local government approval process that predates the modern-day approval process. Many town services that we receive today were not even part of the services that were available to residents when private roads to multiple homes was established. It is my opinion that this bill provides a cogent method to address this imbalance with a simple formal approval process and a reasonable appeals process that is used in property tax disputes. This bill creates a level of fairness that New Hampshire is noted for. I respectfully ask that you approve this bill, and I'm open to any questions.
Senator.
Thank you, and thank you, Lou, for coming in. You had referenced one of the questions that often people ask you, why do we pay the same taxes as those in single family? Has anyone done a comparison to verify that the single family home versus a homeowners association and with comparable home? Has anybody done any comparisons to make sure that their taxes, they're paying this similar?
I have not done it in a formal method, but I have done it. Okay. And what I find is that they're paying the same amount. And I don't believe you'll find an assessor discounting a particular home on a private road.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Thank you, Lou.
Thank you very much for your time.
Richard Sweat.
Good afternoon, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate Bill 250 at this public hearing. My name is Dick Sweat. I'm a resident of the Vineyards at Stratham Condominium Association in Stratham, New Hampshire. I was elected to the association's board of directors in October 2017. I have served as president of the board since September 2019. I am a retired banker and I have no legal training. However, my experience in managing the Vineyard Condominium Association affairs brings me to this public hearing to support SB 250 and SB 246. Reasons why the Vineyard Association Board support SB 250. SB 250 eliminates the inequity in the delivery of municipal services presently existing between residents living in residential condominiums and other town residents. The property tax rate is the same for Vineyard residents as for every other municipal taxpayer, but Vineyard residents do not receive comparable services as a result of the tax inequities. Neither the state, the county, or the town have a road category classified as private roads. There is no road construction standard for developers to follow when constructing a private road. Private road construction quality is not consistent as there are no basic standards to meet. Private roads are not constructed to the town's standards. The town will not accept the substandard private roads, and the town is not willing to provide the same maintenance services as received by homes on public roads. Inferior road construction standards result in unsafe pedestrian and traffic flows. Inferior road construction results in more costly maintenance and shorter useful life for private roads. The density of residential condominium units per acre of land generates substantially greater property tax revenue to the municipality than a single home on a standard 1-acre lot. For example, my condominium development has 76 units. There are 4 units on each 1.2 acres of land, yielding property tax revenue to the town of approximately $36,000 per acre. A comparable single-family unit situated on an acre of land yields a property tax amount of roughly $9,900. Condominium units on private roads generate property tax revenue 3.5 times greater than the property tax revenue per acre, but are denied comparable municipal services. Now, I would like to answer a couple of questions that you have raised. One, houses on private roads have a discounted market value because a homeowner does not receive the full complement of municipal services. We are told this discount is accounted for in the condominium unit's assessed value. An examination of municipal assessment cards does not reveal a differentiation of the assessed value process between homes on private roads and public roads. Real estate listings do not state that a home on a private road is priced at a discounted value compared to a home on a public road, resulting in a reduced property assessment for the buyer. Real estate appraisals are based on comparables such as lot size, gross living area, and location. There is no market value discount for a home on private roads. The town collects property taxes on all the condominium's land, which includes the land occupied by the private roads. In reality, the condominium is paying taxes on its own private roads. Homes located on public roads do not get taxed on the portion of their public road frontage, yet the condominium property taxes are used to maintain public roads in front of similar homes. Now, the other question that always seems to come up is a condominium buyer knew that the roads were private when purchasing the home. The MLS listing on properties provides minimal information under the descriptive title, and I quote, street/road description, association, cul-de-sac, paved, private, privately maintained, unquote. Not very descriptive. The MLS listing does not mention that privately maintained means that the purchaser, through the condominium association, is responsible for the cost of snow plowing, crack sealing, pothole repairs, and repaving costs. The home appraisal does not advise the purchaser of the private road condition and possibly needed repairs. My home appraisal reported the roads as public, not private. Home inspections do not provide any information on private road conditions or owner maintenance responsibility for private roads. The condo search document has 58 questions that provides information to the purchaser. There is not one question on that form identifying the condominium roads as private or public. Should the mantra of caveat emptor be public policy for municipalities to follow to allow developers to construct substandard private roads that result in overtaxation of condominium owners? SB 250 eliminates the existing inequality of property taxes. The Vineyards Board of Directors strongly supports SB 250 and SB 246. Thank you for your opportunity to make this presentation.
Come on down.
Good afternoon. I'm Judy Bastian, and I live in Laconia, New Hampshire. We live in Country Club Shores, my husband and I. It is not a gated community, and it consists of 18 homes. We do support Senate Bill 250, which would provide a non-mandatory enabling legislation for municipalities in New Hampshire to offer us a tax credit. Reason being, we're paying twice for the same thing. You've heard this before. In this subdivision, we contract for services for trash collection, plowing the street, maintaining the street, the entire sewer system, pumping station, as well as the end of street lighting. And our street does connect to the major thoroughfare called Elm Street, which is a public street. The people on Elm Street, along with the other public street residents in Laconia, they get the same services that we do, but they do not pay the additional costs. Part of our property taxes for our homes in Laconia do go into the budget for municipal services, and yet we would not have these services if we did not pay private contractors for them. This means we're paying them twice. Our costs in 2021 for trash collection, sewer, water, drainage, infrastructure, maintenance, cost of lighting on the end of our street, which is where it intersects with Elm, along with our street maintenance, repair, and plowing of snow, totaled $13,484, which translates to a homeowner cost of $749. That is not to tell you that we do not have an HOA fee. We do, and that is not to tell you that is our total HOA cost. I am not talking about things that would be done electively. In 2020, one of our sewer drains was sinking, so of course we needed to repair it. That was a total of $2,897. When you spread these costs out over 18 homes, it does amount to a large dollar amount. And yes, we do have a capital reserve fund for the major elements in our subdivision. We're also aware there is a road acceptance process in Laconia whereby residents can ask that a private street become a public street, and I think I've heard testimony about what the streets are like if they're private versus public. Board members of this subdivision have inquired about that process and found that it could be over 6 figures to bring the street in compliance, and as a result, after learning of the cost, we've taken no action on road acceptance, seeking road acceptance. So passage of Senate Bill 250 would provide enabling legislation to allow municipalities to offer us, people like us in New Hampshire, tax credits to residents in communities like ours, recognizing the fact that a private street resident is paying twice for municipal services. Thank you.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If we check and see if there's another sheet, I'm down to the last two. Matt from NHPVRTA.
Hi, thank you. I'm here from New Hampshire Private Road Taxpayers Alliance, and I'm also president of Rosemary Lane Road Association in Barrington, New Hampshire. I want to quickly just let you know that when I first moved
Can you identify yourself, sorry, for the record?
Pardon?
Can you identify yourself, your name?
Yes.
My name is Matt Neiswinder
And where you come from?
from Barrington, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I had done that. This is the first
That's all right.
time I've testified, so a little nervous, but basically, when I moved into a private road back in 2000, we had no road association or anything to take care of it. I was told when I bought my house as a private sale from the homeowner with no realtor that, oh, there's a guy that lives on the street, he's got a plow truck, he'll, keep the road clear. We just give him like $100, every couple of months during, if the storms are more, throw him a little extra money. And, you don't have to worry about the road maintenance. Me being young and naive and unaware that, of what the real costs are to be able to live on a street that's not maintained by the town was a big eye-opener to me. When the road started breaking apart, we had washout, we had to put in storm drains. All this was done out of our own pockets, and we had to borrow money, take out loans to get our road work repaired so that emergency vehicles could make it down our road and be able to address houses if they had an emergency, needed an ambulance or a fire truck, something like that. And it was a real eye-opening experience. So that is the reason that our association, or our New Hampshire Private Taxpayers Alliance pushed for SB 246, so that the towns don't go ahead and just keep allowing private roads to pop up and not have any capital reserve fund to get into a situation like I walked into, where there were no funds, there were no money, and after I had lived there for about 12 years, I went and started up a private road association and filed it with the town and the state, had to get lawyers to draw everything up and make it legal, get it registered. And, a lot of people just aren't aware of how much work and effort goes into private roads and how much extra money comes out of your own pocket. So, SB 250 takes care of giving that tax break to the homeowners that live on these private roads, puts the burden on the private road associations and the private road owners to apply for this tax credit. It's not something that the state has any burden with. And where it's an optional thing for each town, it's up to the town to decide how they want to handle it and if they're willing to give the homeowners a tax break. Now, the town of Dover and the town of Barrington both have said, you need to go to the state, our hands are tied, we need a tool to be able to do this. That's what SB 246 and 250 does. It kind of helps stop the bleeding for all these private roads that are out there and gives a little tax relief to each taxpayer. So that is the reason that we have come to try to help stop the bleeding and give a little relief. And, I think it's a fallacy that people think, well, you should know what you're getting into when you buy on a private road. Well, I didn't do that because there was basically no realtor involved. There was no association involved. There's a guy on the road to plow. I didn't know that we had, water problems, storm drains needed work, and all the things that go along with that. These are all hidden costs that, most people have no idea unless they've lived on a private road. And having this bill will help open up people's eyes and help give a little relief for, whether your property gets services from the town or not. Basically, there is no market correction that has been done, whether you're on a private road or a public road. And I've actually done research, and the town of Dover and the town of Barrington have both written us letters to our New Hampshire taxation that can be made showing that if you're on a private road or not, that you're getting a break, and there is no correlation at all that shows that people that are on these private roads not getting these services actually get a break. That is not true. It just doesn't happen, and the towns don't have a way to correct that. So that's the reason that we're asking you to support and approve SB 250. Do you have any questions?
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
NHMA, I saved you for last.
To move way up for the microphone. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Catherine Hack with the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I have the distinction of presenting the dissenting opinion as we have to oppose this bill, as it's a policy position to oppose expanded or new tax exemptions and credits. However, we do appreciate the local option within the bill. The chairman had asked a question about property tax assessments considering availability of services, and I had spoken to an assessor who stated that if a marketplace felt that being on a private road was a positive or a negative, that adjustment would be ascertained in the assessment would reflect that. And I did want to note that the bill as written is most likely not practicable. We are concerned with some of the areas of the language in the bill, such as setting the tax rate. So all of tax credits have to be known before a tax rate can be set. This means the community has to sum that up in an exact dollar amount. It can't be a percentage or an unknown. It has to be an exact dollar amount in advance before the MS1, which is due to the DRA on September 1st, can be filed. Another area of concern is reasonably determining on line 20. So what would be the standard or the metric that the Assessing Standards Board or the governing body would have to enact to make sure that it would be reasonably determined? So the next question is, if we did define that, who in the city or town would reasonably determine? Would it be the governing body as the assessors, the legislative body through the vote of town meeting when they adopt this provision, or some other mechanism? Because you have to approve a dollar amount for an exemption for each taxable property, then aggregate that dollar amount for the MS1. So would it be done annually? Would it be done once every 5 years during revaluation? These are some of the questions that we have as far as how we set the tax rate. The other question that we have, would this be an appealable event? And if so, if someone disagreed, what would the appeals process look like? And how would the credit be apportioned within a condominium or a private complex based on percentages of land ownership, based on some units being larger or smaller? It's important that there's some metrics to determine how credits or exemptions would be apportioned, even within it, in a private community, to make sure that there's it's equitable and doesn't leave the assessors or the governing body open to legal interpretations. As I said, this would be difficult to put into practice with different complexes or private communities having different configurations. So the existing tax collection software does not have the scenarios within this bill to implement this type of exemption at this time. The other question we have is on line 10. Who determines not-for-profit entity? Is it the IRS standard or the New Hampshire Attorney General? And we are not sure what the definition of council of co-owners is. However, I'm sure that might exist somewhere, certainly not within our current statutes. And I think it's important to note that village districts, while they are run by local governments, usually their own governing body, but not always, do tax residents separately for the maintenance, repairs, upgrades, or new services that they determine. And much like private roads, these services are not funded through general taxation. So when they have to repair a sewer line or a wastewater line or upgrade their treatment plant, the village district residents, on top of their property tax, have to pay those additional charges in the form of user fees that are billed monthly or quarterly, depending on how the village district is set up. So this bill does raise many questions for us in its implementation. So we are be happy to work with anybody on those concerns, and I'm open to questions.
Questions from committee members? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's the end of our list. And we'll close the public hearing on SB 250. And in just a minute, we'll open SB 251. Let me give you the other one. What did I do with it? Oh, it's right here. So we'll open the public hearing on SB 251, and since Senator Birdsall has a microphone right in front of her, we're going to let her introduce the bill from her chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. I am Regina Birdsall, State Senator from District 19, the towns of Derry, Hampstead, and Windham, and I'm the prime sponsor of Senate Bill 251. And I will apologize because I didn't get a chance to call anyone to let them know that this bill was being heard, so I'm not sure how many people will show up for it. We had a little flood this weekend. So, but this bill requires members of an advisory board for tax increment financing district to be owners or occupants of real property within the community. And what this bill does, it's already, the advisory board is already in the RSA. What this does is changes, as you can see on line 6, or adjacent to the development district, it's the community. So what this does is, my understanding is it allows individuals who own businesses in the community to be on this advisory board. With that, I will try and take any questions, and hopefully there's someone here that can answer some of those.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, Ms. Heck? If I ever call you Cordell, just remember, it's, you know.
Well, I hope I have a little more hair than him. Thank you, committee members, for hearing my testimony. My name is Catherine Heck, for the record, from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. And we are opposing this bill as we feel that it's important that there is some representation on the committee for members within the district, of the TIF district. It's possible that based on the wording of this bill that no member on this committee would be, on this advisory board rather, would be a member of the district, and we think that would be unfortunate not to have that input from people who are going to be affected by the TIF district. So we would ask that you consider that as you're moving forward deliberating this bill. And I'm open to any questions.
Questions from committee members? Certainly, I understand what's going on, and the city of Rochester uses TIFs for lots of things. Opening it up to community members or changing the percentage, I know that you're against it, but if I say instead of the majority of it, you know, some minimal percent or something like that, you know, how would you be in a modification like that? So the bill currently reads that it's within or adjacent to the development of the district, so that didn't preclude community members from serving on this advisory board in the past. And if it's looking to expand it into the, farther out into the community, to your point, Senator, I think we'd be amicable to at least having
some representation, at least a minority representation, but the potential to have no representation from the TIF district is concerning to us.
Okay. Additional questions? Okay, seeing none.
Thank you.
I doubt that there's a sheet in the back, but somebody out there, if they wanted to testify and tell me that they've signed up, I would listen to you. Okay, seeing none, we'll close that public hearing, and we'll, in just a minute, open the public hearing on SB 252. And likewise, Senator Susie, if you'd like to testify right from there.
Thank you very much, Mr.
And
Chairman.
we'll open the public hearing on SB 252.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Donna Susie, representing Senate District 18, which is comprised of the town of Litchfield and 5 wards in the city of Manchester. This bill would require property tax bills to include information regarding the amount dispersed from the Education Trust Fund in the prior fiscal year and the amount the municipality's education grant aid will be reduced under RSA 189.41 as a result of the Education Freedom Account program under RSA 194F2. The reason behind this legislation is quite simple. It's transparency. When we ask local property taxpayers to foot the bill for the private or religious education of a small population of students, taxpayers deserve to know how much of their money is being diverted out of their public schools, and in turn, how much of the gap they will need to make up in possible future years through increased property taxes. This bill does nothing to the policy. To be clear, it does nothing to the existing policy behind the school voucher program inserted into law last year. Well, I'm sure my colleagues probably are aware that I remain opposed to the program. This bill leaves it in place. This bill doesn't touch it. It simply requires an extra line on the tax bill. So it seeks to improve upon the clarity around the actual cost of the program. The reason for that is that during the initial conversations about the first year fiscal impact of the school voucher program, we were told to expect a total cost of approximately $129,000. In the first year, the program has already totaled over $8 million, which is already 5,000% over the estimated budget. And we expect this number could grow exponentially in the coming years, though we still don't have an estimate for fiscal year 23. So Senate Bill 252 seeks to provide an additional level of clarity and transparency in the use of our tax dollars. Our property bills already delineate the amount of public dollars being spent on public education, and it only makes sense that we have the same level of clarity on the amount of public money that's being spent on private institutions. I actually pulled out a copy of my own tax bill today, which I'm not going to circulate, but it's clear that, no, it's public information. You can see it. See, it's a big paid stamp in the middle. But it's clear that, the property tax bill lists the rates for municipal cost, county cost, city education, state education. All we're asking for with this legislation is one additional line. There's plenty of white space on a Manchester tax bill to accommodate it, and I would encourage my colleagues to support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions? I do have a question.
Yes.
Since the expenses for the city are those expenses that the city pays, the expenses for the school district are the expenses that the school district pays. The state education fund has a formula, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the county does their thing. Mm-hmm. It looks like to me like I'm putting a brand new category because it's coming from the Education Trust Fund. Mm-hmm. And it's unlike from the city, from the school district, from the county, or the statewide education fund, so why would I think that that is something, expanding that into the tax bill, why would I think that's a good thing?
Well, thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. I think because it actually is the same. It's the utilization of your tax dollars, whether it's for municipal services, for county services, in this case, for education outside of the private education realm. I think it's perfectly appropriate to add that one line to increase the transparency. I do think it's the same.
I guess we'll discuss that more when we get to executive session.
Happy to.
All right, we have one other speaker. Brian, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
There we go.
Better.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Brian Hawkins representing NEA New Hampshire today. I think this first time before election law and municipal affairs this year. So here in support of Senate Bill 252, as Senator Susi mentioned, I think this is an important transparency bill. While it's certainly no secret that our organization's been opposed to the policy of this bill, Senator Ward knows that from previous hearings that we've had on this law, that we do think that the overall funding of our for property taxes, know that the overall funding of our education through the Education Trust Fund is no longer only to support our public school system, it's now to support an additional system that is to fund private religious and schooling at home. And so I think that is why it's important to delineate that. As we see it, this bill does two important things to express that. The first being there's this new demand on the Education Trust Fund because of the new program. As we've seen, a lot of the additional new state spending has been in students that are not a part of the public school system currently. And so these are brand new state expenditures that are a demand on the trust fund. And as Senator Susi mentioned in her testimony, we're running at about $8 million currently over estimate. Next year's estimate was supposed to be, I think, about $3.2 million. And so the extent to which, we go beyond that as it relates to that number in the following fiscal year, it could be significant. And those are funds that there's a lot of demand on the Education Trust Fund right now. School building aid, other programs. It's important for people to know the extent to which this new program could impact the availability of those funds. The second part is that these are funds that will be state aid that will no longer go to local municipalities and school districts, and so this is state aid that will have to be made up in some form or fashion, especially if you're only talking about student here, student there. There's still the continued expenses that there will be a demand on the school district, and so. And as you probably are well aware, while the legislature put in some grants that phase out over a few-year period of time, those do go away, and I believe in 2025 they don't even come into play at all. So there is going to be that loss, potential loss of state aid for the students who make up our public school system, which is about 90% of the K-12 students in the state. So, as I said, here in support of the bill, we hope that you'll find this bill ought to pass. I'll conclude my testimony there and happy to take any questions.
Questions? Senator.
Thank you, and thank you for taking my question.
Yes.
For the educational trust fund, the money that is going to the children is from the state. This is not affecting the local taxes, correct?
Well, it would affect local taxes if there is state aid that is no longer going to that district because the aid that would have gone to the district for say, either a child that has left the public school system for an EFA program, that'll no longer be going to the school district. So that would have an impact on the property tax. Also, I think, you know, the Education Trust Fund, the more demand that there is from that fund, the more that means there's not availability for, you know, funding like, as I mentioned, school building aid, which is being funded out of Education Trust Funds. So I think there is an impact, and I think this is a way to at least show that.
Hold up.
So even when the grants that we give them are going to be ending, they're not going to, the students are going to be gone. I know in Hampstead, I think 18 students took the scholarships. Even when the grants are gone, the local tax dollars that, even though those 18 students are gone, the local tax dollars those local tax dollars are still going to the school, correct?
They're still going to the, well, certainly the school district will still have to raise the funds, but there'll be more of a demand on the local community to raise those funds when you're missing the $3,700 to almost $8,000 in potential adequacy aid that's missing.
All of them?
But those students aren't there, so why would we need to make up that additional $3,500 or whatever it is per student?
That's a good question. So I think because it's not a one-for-one situation. We're funding a classroom. We're not funding just you know. So in other words, I'll cite our representative. Representative Kirk, when he talked about Senate Bill 193 from a few years ago, in his floor speech, he referenced the fact that if you have a class of 21 and you take one student out, you still have the teacher, you still have the heat, you still have the paraeducator, you still have all the things that are there to support the classroom that we've all come together to fund at our local meetings every year. But the demand has changed because of this particular program. And that's why I think it's important. That's why I think it is a distinction from other programs, as well as, you know, it's important for people to be aware of that this isn't some artificial new demand that's been created. This was a demand created by this particular program.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill that Senator Susie just discussed is the property tax bill, right? Okay. So the property taxes go to municipal, county, and school. And the school part, the part of the thing that goes to the school goes to support public education. No property taxes that I've ever heard of goes to this particular fund that supports the EFAs that the children are now using, the ones who want it. And you talked about if one child leaves the school, they still have the same kinds of expenses, which I agree with. Say that you have 5 that leave, and that particular school will be reimbursed for the first year for 100% of that cost, the second year 50%, and the third year 25%. If 5 kids leaving the school have such an impact, wouldn't you think that 3 years should give them enough time to adjust for the different circumstances?
So I think that depends. I think I don't think that's what this bill is going toward, though. I think the bill is going toward expressing a couple of things: the lost aid that a school district and the local property taxpayers would see, as well as the new money that is committed out of the education trust fund. And so I don't want to speak for Senator Susi, but I don't think that that's what this bill is trying to get into. I think it's trying to make people aware of the demands that inevitably are going to translate into their property tax bill.
Follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't understand what kind of extra, what you want to put on it, because the property tax bill does not cover the EFA fund. I mean, that's it. If anything, I would like to see on the tax bill, none of your property tax money goes to the EFA fund. That would be more beneficial for people to know, because a lot of people have been told that the property taxes are going to go up because now they have to support this incredible fund that is established. And that is not true. The property taxes stay with the local community. It does not go to the fund.
Well, I guess what I would say to that is, we have had numerous changes to our education funding over the last number of years. It used to be the case where there were funds that were raised locally and committed elsewhere. There's going to be a lot of decisions that will need to be made in the future as to how we continue to fund it. Education, and so if there is an impact either from the statewide property tax that goes to these funds, it's important to know. But I think it goes to the second piece of this, which is, again, there's the lost state aid that will have an impact on local property taxes, and so I think that, or at least as I see this bill, that's why I think it's important to have both components. Is you need to know what the demand is on the trust fund. You also need to know the extent to which state aid that used to come to that school district is no longer doing so, and that has a downshift onto a local community.
Follow-up?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So yes, I can agree with you that some of the educational costs have gone up due to all kinds of circumstances, pensions, benefits, all those kinds of things, building upgrades. But I want to be absolutely sure that and everybody knows who pays property taxes, that the property taxes does not go to support the EFA fund. It supports other things, and they may go up and down. So I just want to be sure that everybody understands that property taxes do not go to support the EFA fund. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I do have questions. Okay. Which school district are you most familiar with in New Hampshire?
Well, probably my own, Concord.
Concord?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the average cost of educating a student in Concord School District?
Per pupil?
In excess of $10,000 per student?
Oh, sure.
And what are the funds that are supplied in these grants that we're talking about here? Current.
I'm sorry, to the EFA grants or to the?
To the students. We're talking about a student leaving. How much, when that student leaves, does that student number?
It could be anywhere from.
A normal student without.
I think the average, I'll use the department's own, I think the average amount that they're seeing is around $5,000.
Okay, so the difference between what it costs to educate that student and what the student is getting is $5,000. Wouldn't it be just as appropriate to put the savings that the school district is going to see on that tax bill? Of course, I don't think it's appropriate at all, but wouldn't it be just as appropriate to put that savings of $5,000 on that tax bill?
Well, I guess we may fundamentally disagree on this, but I don't see that as savings if there was $5,000 that was going to support a particular public school district, and now it's no longer, that would have been, again, state aid going to that district, without, it's not, again, it's not a one-for-one enterprise, so I don't.
So, to follow up on that and ask you another question.
Sure.
If I have three kindergartens, Rochester, the East Rochester School, and right now there are approximately 12 students in each one of those three classes. To get under the state's minimum, or the maximum students that I can have in a kindergarten class, how many students have to leave?
I'm sorry.
I believe it's 18 is the maximum in a kindergarten, so that if I have three classes of 12, that actually I could go to 18 already and not violate it. So how many students would have to leave? None, right? So I could lose no students and still reduce by a teacher. Again, what I'm trying to do is, your testimony talked about one student leaving doesn't save me anything. And in that one classroom, that's exactly true. But I can take examples because I've signed contracts with teachers. So where's the average? Have you got a number that tells me what the average student savings is, and then accumulated that up into the middle school and accumulated that up into the high schools, such that I don't have to offer that one more class in English, that one more class in math? Have you got any of that data?
I don't have any of that data with me, but I would say that that public school, or at least statewide, supports around 90% of our K through 12 students.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
We'll close the public hearing on Senate Bill 252, and in just a minute, we'll open up the public hearing on 325, and I see that the prime sponsor is in the back.
All set?
As soon as she's ready, I'm ready.
The boss, when the boss is ready.
We'll open the public hearing on Senate Bill 325, and prime sponsor, if you'd take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's nice to see you. Hopefully everyone had a nice weekend. My name is Kevin Cavanaugh. I'm the Senator from District 16, representing the towns of Bow, Candia, Dunbarton, Hooksett, and Manchester Wards 1, 2, and 12. This bill, Senate Bill 325, this bill defines the emergency personnel included in the local organization for emergency management. The intent of this bill was really to define first responder and get it into New Hampshire law, and we went after it for the Homeland Security Act of 2002, which, when I get through my testimony at the end, I realize there's some language and maybe placement of it is going to be changed. But I do want to thank Tim Clorty from Manchester DPW for bringing this forward. And he's also the president of the New Hampshire Public Works Association, where I met with the statewide group in Manchester, probably about 100 of these associations from around the state, and they were talking about the need to have the public works. Again, it was intended to put state law to match the Homeland Security Act of 2002. What we saw during the shutdown is really how many first responders we did have. DPW workers went to work to keep the cities and towns running. The mechanics from Fleet Services went to work so DPW could do their jobs. Waterworks personnel throughout the state did service work as well as emergency repairs during this whole shutdown. And really on the front line, and something we've got to add into this, I'd like to amend into that, was public health professionals working 7 days a week. In Manchester, we had ours, the Emergency Operations Center at the State Armory in Manchester, where they were doing the first drive-up testing. And you forget about it, there's police and fire as first responders, and the health department workers are on the front line testing people when you talk about the need for, at that time, for face mask and all the protections that we have so much of now. They were the first responders there. And again, I know this, we have to do some work on the language in this bill, and I'd be glad to work. I did talk with the state fire marshal as well as the emergency management director, and I'd love to get together with them and any other stakeholders just to make sure this bill balances the needs for everyone. It was really the intent to define first responders in the state, and that's why I wanted to put it in. And in no means wanted to just kind of take away any kind of control over an emergency disaster situation or any kind of emergency management of that case. And I did speak with emergency management and fire marshal's office, so willing to get together with them. I know Senator Susi, with your expertise, we could hopefully find the appropriate language and spot to put this. So with that, I'd close my testimony and take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any questions? Senator Ritzel.
So, thank you for taking my question. So let me just, the RSA that you have put it into is for emergency management. Is your intention to keep it in the emergency management, or are your intention to add them to the police, the fire, and the dispatchers?
I would like to add them to that with the definitions, because we took it off the Homeland Security Act of 2002, and it talks as well as emergency management, public health, clinical care, public works, and other skilled support personnel. What I want to find the right place to put it. I don't want to just to define first responder. And the fire marshal did point out a statute, I think it was 21B, I think he can hopefully speak to it, but wherever the appropriate spot is. This was something we couldn't find the definition in the state, so we kind of went with OLS and kind of put it where we thought was appropriate, but that may not be the case. So.
Yes, ma'am.
My only concern is the work that I'm doing on the PTSD Commission, and we're opening it up to a lot of what we're working on the PTSD Commission, that's for emergency responders, which is firefighters, police, dispatchers, and now corrections officers. Are they going to be added into that as well? Are you looking to put that into that RSA is what I'm...
I wasn't really even thinking about putting it into that RSA. I was just more about getting the definition to really look at what happened during the shutdown of people that did have to go to work to keep everything running. And even with the health department workers, like it speaks to in the Homeland Security Act.
Just last question.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're going to continue working on this?
Yes, I know it needs work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you confer, when you figure out which RSA, can you let me know?
Yep, I'll let you know. I'd love to talk to you about that commission too. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Additional questions? Senator Ward.
Is this local
Microphone? Is your microphone on?
This local organization that you are proposing, is that going to be made up of already existing personnel, or are you looking to get more people in? For example, who is the director going to be? Is that within the organization already, or is it going to be somebody from the outside that's going to be hired to run this thing?
You can tell when the calendar comes out, because Friday I was having a nice day at home, a snow day, and all of a sudden my phone blew up. But a lot of the questions were that from the emergency management. They said, "Who is this?" And that's part of the thing. I'm not intending to change that at all. And we were talking in the hallway about even eliminating all that, the local organization's span of control, because that's not my intent on this at all. It's just to define the first responder. And if we have to remove all that, because I don't want to change any local control of how the emergency management is handled. They do a great job. They handle it great. So if we have to remove that whole first line, I'm willing to do that, because that was a question I got from emergency management as well, and I don't want to go in that direction for this at all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Additional questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Representative Mike Edgar.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon. For the record, my name is Mike Edgar, and I represent Hampton, the New Hampshire House. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for allowing me to speak today concerning SB 325. I'm here to speak in favor of SB 325. This bill amends the RSA, the 21-P:39, which addresses local organizations for emergency management. And I'll read to you the actual insert, because it's good just to have it for the record here. It inserts into the existing law for the following. Local organization span of control is to include all emergency management personnel and first responders, state, county, and local enforcement personnel, fire department personnel, emergency medical personnel, emergency management personnel, and public works personnel who may be deployed to terrorism attacks, catastrophic or natural disasters, and emergencies. This helps define public works employees as one of the groups that are authorized to be designated emergency management personnel and responders. Actually, I'm getting involved with this as a result of my public works director really feeling very strongly on this, and that's Jennifer Hale in Hampton. It is important to recognize and ensure Department of Public Works employees are included when emergency responders are identified in the plans, exercises, and implementation to terrorism attacks, catastrophic or natural disasters, and emergencies. Many times, public work employees are the first on the scene. Some may liken it to when World War II, the U.S. Navy Seabees cleared the obstructions for landing craft so the U.S. Marine Corps could reach the beach. I know many will take exception to this. I know many Marines that would. Me serving with the Seabees, I might disagree. But I hope you understand that most times, public works employees are the first on the scene. Public workers are essential workers critical to the town of Hampton's response to emergencies and natural disasters. Storms, including frequent flooding, handling snow and ice, and keeping the roads clear of obstacles are a few of the recurring events that Public Works deals with. If the roads are not safe, other emergency responders are hampered or prevented from performing their duties. Okay, I hope you recognize the important role Public Works personnel perform before, during, and following emergencies and natural disasters. Thank you for considering this bill, and I hope you vote, by the sound of things now, ought to pass with amendment on SB 325.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Representative. New Hampshire Public Works Association, Timothy, come on down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. My name is Tim Clardy. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director for the City of Manchester, and I also serve as President of the New Hampshire Public Works Association. I'm here today to encourage your support of SB 325. The term first responder refers to those individuals who in the early stages of an incident are responsible for the protection and preservation of life, property, evidence in the environment, including emergency management, police, fire, public health, clinical care, public works, and other skilled support personnel. It's our hope that legislation recognize the important role of emergency management personnel, including public works, during times of major and minor disasters, and formally recognizing their role as first responders within the state of New Hampshire laws as has already been done by the federal government. It's our hope that this can be established. Thank you for your service to the state and allowing me the time to address the committee.
Questions? And I guess your cohort, Dan's next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Daniel Hudson, and I'm a city engineer for the city of Nashua, New Hampshire, which has over 170 employees in the Public Works Division. I'm here today to speak in support of this bill or an amendment of this bill, as it may be. As has been said, Public Works employees are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Often the first to arrive, setting up traffic control, detours during incidents, and often the last to leave, completing final cleanup of scenes. Public Works employees are dedicated in serving the public. It's in our name. And often, especially during this time of year, that work takes us away from our families. In Public Works, we're not in it for the accolades, but it is appropriate to recognize Public Works members as first responders, because that's part of what we do. Thank you again, and again, I ask for your support for this bill or amendment thereof. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. AFSCME, Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board, for allowing us to speak today. Again, my name is Ed Emond. I've been with the City of Manchester, DPW, for the last 20 years. Also, for the last 6, I've been a union steward for the Askme union here in New Hampshire. We're very much in support of this bill, and hopefully we gain your support also. Again, 19 years, 20 years into the city, I know we're the hardest working guys in New Hampshire. Every DPW does their job in all different areas, disasters, snow, I mean, everything. We're here, and we need your support on this bill. We would appreciate it, and thank you for letting me speak.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. And again, from the Hampshire Public Works Association, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. I'm Scott Kinman. I currently serve as the Public Works Director in the town of Alton, and I am the past president of New Hampshire Public Works Association. And I am here in support of this bill. I've served 35 years in New Hampshire as a municipal employee. 24 years of that was as a law enforcement official, 11 years as a police chief. Also served as a firefighter for 12 years in a volunteer capacity, and in that capacity as an assistant emergency management director as well. In my service now as a public works director, I find that this bill is very much in support of that unified aspects that we respond to most of these types of emergencies all together and in a unified fashion. Where we have police, fire, emergency management officials, and also public works in there is to support in these types of incidents, which has been very wide and broad, not only from natural disasters. Mother Nature is not very nice to us sometimes, as we all know, and then there's also in support of other types of activities that may be occurring in support of law enforcement or other emergency management, homeland security type incidents where Public Works would be called into action to assist. We would like to have this as a recognition of our participation and support as a unified group in this aspect. And I would thank you in support of this bill. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Thank you very much. And again, AFSCME Council 93, Jim. or James? I don't know which one you prefer.
Jim, please.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should begin by apologizing. I was so excited to put, I will tell you again.
I'll forgive you, but I don't know about anybody else.
I will tell you that, for the record, my name is James Durkin. I'm the Legislative Director for Askme Council 93, and we proudly represent more than 2,600 public sector workers here in New Hampshire, including several hundred public works professionals in Manchester, some of whom you've already met, and several other communities across the state. And I'm here today on behalf of these members to express our strong support for Senate Bill 325. This legislation, along with the existing statute it seeks to amend, makes, of course, for sound public policy, as if it's one thing we've all learned over the past few years in particular, we can never be too prepared for emergencies. By including public works professionals, along with law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, and other more traditionally known job titles when defining the span of control of this local emergency management organization governed under this statute, this legislation may help provide the state and municipalities with expanded options when it comes to seeking federal grant funding by allowing for the inclusion of public works related projects, including equipment and infrastructure, as part of preparing for and responding to emergencies. But what we especially like about this legislation is it gives long overdue and well-deserved formal acknowledgement of the essential role that public works professionals play in responding to emergencies, as well as the dangerous nature of their job. So we wanted to have a presence here today, not only to express our support for the bill, but also to extend our gratitude to Senator Kavanaugh, Senator Bradley, Senator Soucy, and the sponsors from the House for recognizing and seeking to codify into statute what we and many others have known for many years now. Our public works professionals, including people out on the roads and in the trenches, as well as the people behind the scenes in jobs like fleet maintenance, are a vital component of our state's and community's ability to effectively respond to emergencies of any and all degrees, and more often than not, are the first to respond. And I would just kind of close by adding that anyone with any doubt about the importance and dangers of their jobs need only travel just a few miles up the road to the Public Works Memorial, which was dedicated back in 2019. That memorial honors 37 New Hampshire public works professionals who were killed on the job, dating back to 1893 right through 2016. And Governor Sununu, who our union has had some disagreements with from time to time, had it right at the dedication when he said, quote, "These are first responders. These are folks out there in the middle of the night, plowing a road, fixing a water main, whatever it might be, they're always there. They're nameless. We don't often know them in our communities. We just take it for granted that the water will turn on or the road will be fixed." So the only thing I would add, Mr. Chairman, is I heard the sponsor, Senator Kavanaugh, talking a little bit about possibly bringing in public health into this, which we would welcome and strongly suggest. Our public health nurses in Manchester were among the first, we believe, in the country to staff a drive-up mobile testing site. And this was long before vaccines, long before any real PPE was available widespread. And I don't know if this was the situation in Manchester, but I can tell you we have public employees in 4 states. And our school nurses in many communities, including in my hometown of Lowell, Massachusetts, they are also part of the public health department. They were redeployed and did this incredible contact tracing work, which helps slow the spread of the virus. So I think, you know, to the extent they could be brought into a program like this or an initiative like this, I think it would make sound sense. I thank you for your time and your attention, and I will do my best to answer any questions the committee may have.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. And
Thank you,
now
sir.
the president of AFSCME, Dennis. Welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dennis Bourgeois. I am president of Askme Local 298 in Manchester, New Hampshire. I represent approximately 210 members who work at the Department of Public Works, Central Fleet Management Garage, Wastewater Treatment Plant, and Health Department. At one point, when the people were advised to quarantine themselves, our members were working every day during this crisis. We are first responders. Whatever the emergency may be, first responders depend on us to make our roads accessible for whatever debris so they can do their jobs. Your support for Senate Bill 325, recognizing our role in the community as first responders, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no questions, thank you very much. NHMA, come on down.
Thank you. Nate Grace for the New Hampshire Municipal Association. I just want to reiterate what everyone before me has said, that we are in support of this bill, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Seeing none, well, thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Sean Toomey? SFMO. That's a new one on me, so. All right. Well, see, there you go.
Good afternoon, Mr.
I guess
Chair.
I've never referred to him like that before.
Snuck in the initials. Good afternoon. My name is Sean Toomey, the State Fire Marshal. I snuck in to sign in before Jen Harper could, she's the Director of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. As Senator Kavanaugh indicated, we've been working a little bit about the language itself. We're very supportive of updating the definition of first responders, supportive of that. The concern is about the definition and the language around span of control and what the impacts are on the authorities and the relationship between the local and the state level. So the example I'll give you is at a hazmat scene. In the statute, the Fire Marshal's Office has the support function and the ability to come in and take over a hazmat scene. And so the example here would be if this is passed with that first part of that sentence in changing the local organization of span of control, I think it would create some conflicts between whose authority it is, whether it's the State Fire Marshal's Office or the locals on a local scene in that case. So I think if we can work with Senator Kavanaugh, the Public Works crew, and anyone else to just try to refine those specifics, we can be very supportive of this moving forward. Happy to answer any questions, or if Director Harper wanted to offer any comments.
No, I would just reiterate, Jen Harper, I'm the Director for Homeland Security and Emergency Management. Talked to Senator Kavanaugh, like the Fire Marshal noted, and we just would like to put in a definition into the RSA and maybe not into this particular piece, and define what is a first responder. There's likely Public Works, Public Health, and probably if we dig around long enough, we can probably find a couple more that fit the definition as well. So looking to expand that and make sure that we have everybody covered.
Okay. Senator Birdsong, you had a question?
And I'll just be brief. Are you looking to put a definition in the RSA 21-P:39, which is the emergency Homeland Security and Emergency Management RSA?
Quickly looking, it may be better suited RSA 21P:35, the definitions.
Okay. But it's still in the topic of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. I think.
Yes, I think so.
Okay. I'll look it up.
I like to be able to defer and have a conversation with the senator and make sure that we have it in the right place.
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right. Seeing no other questions, I do have one additional question for Senator Kavanaugh. Is a week enough? I'd like to get this settled and get it to the floor. Is a week enough?
I think a week is, everyone can get this done in a week? Yeah, I can guarantee a week.
And with that, we'll close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Pardon? we'll do it on Thursdays. We may not get to the Senate floor for whatever. I would just do weekends. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? We have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those,
Discussion on that motion?
okay?
Okay. Mr. Chair, I have a petition that I wanted to submit in connection with the votes on some of the redistricting bills, so I'd like to submit that before those discussions. I don't know if now would be an appropriate time.
I would say after we get into executive session, then it would be an appropriate time, and I will recognize you as soon as we take the vote. How's
Okay,
that?
sounds good.
Okay. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are in executive session. Senator Perkins Polka.
Thank you, Chair. And maybe since Tricia is here, I could just share this document with you to share with the committee. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair. So I know today we might take up some votes. It's possible, in our list of bills to take up some votes on redistricting some of the, or acting on some of the redistricting bills. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to present to you a petition that I've prepared and had signed by over 530 people that are asking for some process accommodations as we go through this vote. And so I'd just like to speak to that a little bit. I could. New Hampshire is changing, and our district lines must change along with it every 10 years following the census. But they must be changed in a way that is reflective of our populations. All voices must be considered and equitably represented, and a strong, vibrant, and trustworthy democracy depends on voters choosing their elected leaders in a competitive, earnest competition of ideas, where neighbors talk to neighbors and ideas are exchanged. This redistricting process is incredibly important to our democracy and one we should all watch closely and participate in, particularly after the last redistricting process left voters out and produced unfair maps. Over the last week and a half, 530 Granite Staters have signed a petition that calls for the following: that our Election Law and Municipal Affairs Committee hold an additional evening hearing to allow for greater participation and input into these bills, and that the committees charged with redistricting, which includes ours, should draft amendments to the maps and hold work sessions in public which allow the public to understand their reasoning and hear the basis for the districts crafted. I've heard from many folks who are unable to attend the daytime meetings due to work shifts that they could not afford to miss. Holding evening hearings will ensure that hardworking individuals and families have a voice in the process. And in the House, we saw much greater participation in the evening hearing. Concerning a work session, we have all sat together and heard the testimony of our voters. They want to see bipartisan work on these maps, to understand their basis and criteria, and to see their senators do the work of crafting this legislation. It is not unprecedented. Internal affairs committees of past Senate sessions have engaged in such work. For the redistricting process to truly create a government that reflects its people, we need to provide all folks with the opportunity to participate. This moment demands action to restore faith in our democracy. New Hampshire takes its civic duty too seriously not to set the example across the country as a beacon of how our democracy should work. The path towards a better future for all Americans and Granite Staters, regardless of their party, is with free and fair elections where our vote, our voice, our power is what decides elections, not politicians. I ask that you honor these requests prior to voting on the proposed maps. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trish, do you have the list that I sent out of the bills? Would you read them to me so I can? I want it. I think it was 50, 50. 239, 240 and 3.
Sorry, SB 239, 240, 328, and 366.
Okay. On HB 50, the amendments that you received in the email, I sent you the changes. They were Rockingham County, and there were also the Ward 2 and Ward 4, and I believe Laconia was the one that was swapped when they did their city redistricting. Does everyone have a copy of that amendment? Okay, Trish says it's in your amendment file in front of you. The last amendment was 0420S. I think everybody's got it. The audience may not if they want it. Okay. Do I have a motion on House Bill 50? We have an ought to pass motion. I will second that. And do we have a motion on an amendment? I'll move the amendment 0420S. We have a second. Discussion?
If I could just speak to it, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
I still think there are some significant flaws, even with the amended plan. It does make some improvements, but it still leaves some remaining issues to be resolved. But I'm also respectful of the longstanding agreement we have with the other chamber, that we don't attempt to amend the other chamber's districts accepted their requests. So I haven't prepared an amendment, but I just wanted to at least highlight the counties where I think there are some outstanding issues. Throughout this process, the message from the public has been that they want to see House districts, as much as possible, single-member districts, either within a ward or within a town. And they want to see cities kept together in base and flotarial districts, and when there are multi-town districts, base those districts on communities of interest. And I think that's where this plan falls short, and it makes choices that are different from some of the things that we heard from the public. The Constitution has language about single-member districts, and I know that we've talked about reading the entire amendment, but where possible, it's something that the public truly expects us to do and to try to achieve. And I think there were instances where we could have achieved that and didn't. And the plan, I think, unnecessarily combined some city wards with neighboring towns that created very large floats where, in fact, some more compact districts could have been possible. So if I could just highlight a few places. For example, in Carroll County, Moulton Borough could be, with a population of 4,918, could be entitled to its own single-town base district, but instead the plan puts it in a base district with Madison and Tamworth. An alternative was proposed to give Moulton Borough its own district without impacting the rest of the county map, but that was rejected. In Cheshire, there are at least two examples. The plan puts 5 wards of Keene into a large flotarial district that also includes 14 other towns in the county. Once again, I think an alternative was offered to reduce the number of towns that were paired with the Keene wards, but that didn't materialize. Also in Cheshire County, both Chesterfield and Hinsdale have populations sufficient that they could have had their own single-member district, but instead this plan put them into a 3-town base district. In Hillsborough, New Ipswich is another example where the population is 5,204, but it was placed into a base district of 3 towns, including Temple and Wilton, even though an alternative could have been offered to pair those together and make that part of a float. In Merrimack, Merrimack County that is, Hookseth's population is 14,871. So Hooksett is entitled to its own single town-based district, but just as it had over the last 10 years, but yet this plan pairs Hooksett and Dunbarton, which is a change from what had previously occurred where Hooksett had its own representation. Bow would be entitled to a single town-based district. Bow was paired with Hopkinton. In Rockingham, the plan takes Portsmouth's Ward 1, which is a single ward district, and pairs it with Newington. The plan also takes away Portsmouth's Ward 5 single ward district and pairs it with Newcastle. In both cases, alternatives were offered, but they were not made part of the final plan. In Greenland, which has a population of 4,067, and Rye, a population of 5,543, both could have had single-member districts and then placed into a floterial, but instead the base district is 2 towns. And then in Stratford, the plan takes away Rochester's Ward 5 single ward district and now pairs it with Milton. The plan takes away both Dover Ward 4 and Lee's single town and ward base districts and instead pairs them with Madbury. And in Barrington and Stratford, both could have had single-member districts, and instead, these 2 towns are put together. And although Sullivan, there weren't as many issues, there are still people that feel that there are some concerns there as well. So for those reasons, I can't support the existing plan. As I said, the amendment did make some modifications that I think were an improvement, certainly Laconia switching wards, some of the changes made to Manchester, but overall there's still a number of areas where I think we could have provided districts that were single-member districts.
Thank you. Senator Ferguson Spoken.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to echo some of my colleagues' concerns about the house maps. I think she touched on a lot of the specific points, but I think we did hear in public input that we wanted to see compact house districts with town-specific representation and to keep our cities together. And so unfortunately, we don't feel that these maps do that. And I know Senator Susie spoke on a lot of the points in Rockingham and Stratford County in particular, but it just feels like we could have had districts where, for example, Portsmouth would be entitled to its own representative, Greenland and Rye each could have had their own representative, and we have Portsmouth wards grouped with surrounding towns for the first time. So I'm also disappointed in these maps and wish that we could have seen them formed more around communities of interest. Thank you.
Any other questions? In speaking about the things that you brought forward, Senator Susie, the only one I'm intimately familiar with is Rochester Ward 5 and combining it with another town. Because of questions from the Rochester City Council, I went in and I said, can Rochester stay the way it is? And the answer, after you apply the floterial formula in Manchester versus Gardner, in Appendix C, it gives you explicit details that Rochester was not going to stay the way it was and needed to be redistricted somehow. In combination with that, the previous Milton redistricting no longer met the percentage criteria for population, and therefore had to change. And when you look at the communities that it borders on, there is limited choice in what you could do. Farmington has almost the ideal population for 2 representatives. And so we're given a choice of Middleton going with New Durham, or Middleton going with Milton, or the only other place that Milton touches besides Middleton and Farmington is Rochester Ward 5. And also with my reading of Manchester versus Gardner, that it speaks in their words such that someone may come in and find that you could do something other than the way it was done in a particular map. But that doesn't make it wrong. So without investigating every one that you did, I'm confident that at least the Rochester Milton one, there is a basis for the reason it was done that way, and I would have to do extensive research into each one of those if I were trying to answer the question. But they have just been brought to me, and there's no reason after my looking at one of the ones that you brought that I would question that they meet the flotorial calculations that get us within the 10% that's required. It's certainly, my point in that is that it will not deter me from supporting this motion at this time. Are there any other questions about Amendment 0420S? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
And I got a 3-2. Do I have a motion ought to pass as amended? I guess I already do have an ought to pass. And so is there any discussion on ought to pass as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And I got 3-2, and I guess I will take that one out. Moving on to 54. I can see why Shannon wants me to get rid of some of these bills.
I have a separate binder just for redistricting. For that reason, it's the volume.
$54. HB 54. I know if I put it on the floor, I'm just gonna pick it up again, so I won't. Let me just transfer a couple of notes here. Okay. All right. Okay, the amendment I have is from you, Senator Perkins Coker. Okay. Do we have an ought to pass motion?
Like, I had one with Senator Susie and Senator.
Yeah.
Same. 504 was the number? Yeah.
Oh, I guess you are first. I looked and, there you go.
I move ought to pass on House Bill 54.
Okay. And do I have a motion on Amendment 0504?
I move Amendment 0504. I'll second the original motion. Yeah. Chairman, I move Amendment 0504S.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll speak to it if I may. Thank you. Thanks for bringing forth this bill on the county commissioners. We looked over the bill as proposed, and we felt that there was still some changes in Cheshire County to address. So even though the populations of these existing districts did fall within the 10% deviation, there were some changes in Cheshire County that, were changed basically, and there didn't seem to be any compelling reason for that. And it does impact one of the incumbents that's in the district. So one of the principles of redistricting is to try to keep districts as similar as they can as we go through this process. And so where this affects an incumbent commissioner and there's no compelling reason to adjust the districts based on population, we wanted to bring an amendment to put this Cheshire commissioner district back to the way it originally was.
From what you said, Senator, what are the population differences between the way it was presented and the way you've got it in the amendment?
Sure. I think originally the population of the existing districts. So the way that it was situated, prior to this change was that there was a 3.7% deviation in the existing district, which is also reflected in the amendment.
So they're about the same.
Wait, in Cheshire? County Commission, 2012 and 2020 populations. So here it says, deviation range is 3.5 to 4. I guess that's right. Okay, sorry.
So it doesn't result in a big difference in population.
That's right, and that's the reason we wanted it to just stay the same, because it does affect one of the incumbent commissioners.
Any other comments?
Just to reiterate, there didn't seem to be a need for any change.
Right.
Whatsoever, but having made the change, they've then disrupted one member of the delegation, and that just didn't seem necessary.
Okay, any other discussion? And hopefully nobody will come through the ceiling, right? Oh,
I just have a question, so I know what we're talking about. This amendment, it refers to the amendment by Barbara Griffin, 2273?
No, we're talking about 05. We're talking about 050S.
0504.
Or
I'm sorry,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm looking at the, so I'm just wondering if do we go back and forth, is that it?
No, Senator, you're actually correct. The original bill had the district as it's currently configured.
Right.
And what happened was the House amended it to change the district, so the amended version has a change. And what we're proposing is just to bring it back to what the
I see.
original
Okay.
was.
Thank you very
Because
much.
the population's within the deviation, and in addition, the change displaced one of the existing commissioners.
Okay, thanks.
Personally, I don't see the need to change the House passed version if the populations are relatively the same. So I will be voting against this. Any further discussion? Okay. Vote on Amendment 0504S. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Nay. And the amendment fails. So we're back to ought to pass. Further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
3-2. And who wants to take that one out?
Take it.
Okay. Senator Birdsall.
Senator Birdsall.
Now, we do have an amendment to this one. And the reason you have an amendment is because the bill actually changes it enough that you need to change the sheet that they apply on. And the amendment is 0511H. And I'll second that. And I'll move amendment 0511H.
I'll second it.
Could I ask a question,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman? So at the hearing, Representative McDonald also presented us with an amendment, which is
We'll bring
2247.
Representative McDonald right up to the speaker. And it sounds like it would be easiest for him to answer your question.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I just want to make sure that we're covering, I mean, I have a fundamental issue here, but the amendment that you presented at the hearing, which is 2247H, does that still need to pass? And is this in addition? Because you've presented us now with two amendments. So
Yes,
if you want passage of both, or?
Right, the First Amendment amends 662:6, the way the delegates to the convention are apportioned. The Second Amendment that, has just been distributed here this afternoon amends RSA 655:17, I believe, which is the filing form to file for delegate. The Secretary of State advised me that the current filing form enables people to file by town for delegate. Where we're changing it to file by representative district, we needed to change the form to reflect that.
Okay, so that Second Amendment is 2247H. And we can take that one up after.
I don't know, that's what I was asking.
Okay, we have a motion on Amendment 0511H.
Maybe we don't need to adopt both, the other was already adopted. Okay.
We didn't take you mean on 0511?
No, I was referring to the other one, but I think that was already
2247?
adopted, so we're on the new one.
We didn't adopt that one yet, did we?
The House did. I had a whole packet, Senator Birdsall, of information, so I thought we had not adopted it, but the House had already adopted it. So that's how it came over.
Oh, got it, okay.
Just a little buried in paperwork is all.
All right.
Treaties died for this. Okay. So this was already passed by the House.
Okay, seeing no further discussion on this one, we're voting on Amendment 0511H. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
No.
And I get 3-2. All right. Seeing no other amendments, then we have a motion of ought to pass as amended. And all those in favor of ought to pass as amended, say aye.
Could I just,
Oh,
I was
yes,
gonna,
ma'am.
sorry, it wasn't regarding the amendment specifically, but since the
Yep.
amendment is most of the bill. I'm intend to vote against the amendment, and it's sort of a fundamental issue I have with the state subsidizing the election of one party's delegates to the convention, so that's all.
Okay. So the motion that we're voting on now is ought to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
And we have 3-2. And you said you wanted to take that out, Regina? Okay. All right, 239 is the next one on the list. And we have a motion of ought to pass.
This is Senator guidance bill that requires notification to the Department of Revenue, DRA, of a completed municipal accounting audit and establishing a fine failure to council.
Other comments?
Do we have an amendment? At the hearing, the Municipal Association didn't take a position on the bill, but they did object to the fine. Do we?
Right.
And I did have extensive discussions with both Senator Gaida and the Municipal Association. And the Municipal Association, although not supporting the fine, that because it doesn't take effect until, I think it's 90 days after, and the fine is up to 250, they are not in violent opposition to the bill. How's that for weasel words? I second it.
Did you?
Okay, then I'm doing it now.
I'm sitting right next to him.
239. Okay, any other discussion on this one? Motion is ought to pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have a motion to go into consent. All those in
Second.
favor? All those in favor?
Aye.
And 5-0. Who would like to take this one out? I'll take it. All right. She must like the reports that you write up, so.
Could we do 328 next, Mr. Chairman?
328. We're gonna go down, but I had a request to do 328 next. I don't know that I have it in my
It was on the list.
238. Oh, 328, yep. I'm still in the 200s. I apologize. It'll be easier if I get this over here this way. Yep. Okay. Date of the state primary. Yep, that was to. That's what it looks like.
I know I don't know. Like, nothing there.
I think that it satisfies one of Senator Susie's questions.
And then I think, oops, sorry, go ahead. I think we were gonna talk about, of course, a change in maybe line 7. Perhaps the chairman is open to a friendly amendment because we discussed with Secretary Scanlon for the language to read something like, is hereby authorized to make a corresponding change to the date of the primary election not to exceed 3 days or similar language. So that
On
it was.
line 7 of page 1?
Yeah, line 7 of page 1. Because I think the intent was just to be able to accommodate minor shifts. And so he was open to that clarifying language, if you might be.
If you would read me where I'm supposed to go in line 7.
Sure.
Tell me
The
what we're saying.
end of line 7. So it reads, he or she is hereby authorized to make a corresponding change to the date of the primary election not to exceed 3 days.
So I guess I'm getting lost in the 3 days.
Okay. Or we could just say, we could add minor. The intent was that as drafted, the date could be moved without limitation, and obviously that's not the intent of the secretary. So since what he wants is the ability to move the primary date just to accommodate unforeseen events, then I think we discussed just limiting how far the date could be moved.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, in the hearing report, towards the end of the deputy's testimony, well, I think he was Secretary of State at that point, not deputy. Senator Perkins Coca asked that question, and it says speaker, I think it's supposed to say secretary. Secretary Scanlon replied, that makes sense, and it would give them the flexibility to make sure they can process the UCAVA ballots. I think some of us are just concerned that with a blanket, he can change the date, that's a very, very broad authority that has nothing to do with any individual, but that shouldn't be bestowed. It should be within a very narrow window if they have to make that decision. So maybe if it said within 3 days of the original date, or,
Well, if I'm changing the date of the primary 3 days,
it's gotta be on a Tuesday.
I think that the only other places I change the dates, I still move it to a Tuesday. I don't know that I do that anyplace else where I would only move it.
But then if you move it too far ahead beyond even to another Tuesday, if you move it so far ahead to another week, then you're bumping up against the ability to get all of the other ballots and things out in time for the general, and also potentially run afoul of the federal legislation. So just to be clear, I do support the change of the primary. I certainly support the amendment to make it not effective in '22, but to the following year. I'm just trying to figure out how this discretionary language just could be curtailed just a tiny bit.
The question that I have when you talk about UOCAVA ballots is that the UOCAVA ballots that would go out based on
Oh,
these
that's right, would be, yeah,
would be
earlier.
from June to September 14th, 15th, right in there, would be the amount of time that they would have.
So maybe it should be within a week's time then, so it could be extended a week. I think the intent is to have the primary date changed to June, but I think this language doesn't reflect that it has to be within that same month. I think this language is so broad that the secretary, who testified in opposition to the bill, could move it to September. So I think we just want to clarify the language. As I said, I'm supportive of the bill. I'm not trying to derail it in any way. I'm just trying to, as I think Senator Perkins Quokka said, just trying to narrow
Ring-fence
that
Yep.
So
to the
if I
following
were-
Tuesday.
to the following Tuesday, and I guess if the emergency still existed, then he would still have a chance to do it to the following Tuesday?
Because right now, well,
it's
it's
the
third Tuesday, so it
Tuesday.
could be moved to the fourth Tuesday. Maybe we,
Right.
by authorized to make a
Well,
correspondence.
I don't necessarily disagree with, having him able to move it successively, just like in states of emergency, et cetera, we make the governor renew them every 21 days or whatever it is. This side of the table's been pretty quiet. I know you don't support moving the primary.
I do not, I support the one that Senator Susie and I put in last year. I think this bill puts the state Senate in a really precarious situation because the sign-up period is gonna be March, April timeframe. We're getting a boatload of bills coming from the House. We're gonna be doing our work while everybody else is out campaigning. I think it puts us in a really sticky situation, so I don't support it.
All right. So the language that you would put in here may move the election to the following Tuesday.
Another way we could do it, if this is easier to accomplish everyone's intent, is just to say, make a corresponding minor change to the date, and we could leave the interpretation of minor to the Secretary of State. But I do think there's a challenge with just leaving it wide open. I think being able to move it to the fourth Tuesday, it's pretty unusual that it needs to be moved in the first place, right? So.
How about if we just say up to 1 week? And that does restrict him, it doesn't say.
Okay.
I can do that, yep.
At the end of the sentence, up
Yeah.
to 1 week.
Yep.
know.
I couldn't hear you, Trish. Hit your button.
Do you want it to say not to exceed 1 week or up to 1 week?
I wanted to say up to 1 week.
Okay.
If that's a motion, I would second up to 1 week. At the end of line 7.
So the motion on the bill, I'll move on to pass. And
I'll
I
second.
think you seconded it before anyway. And the committee amendment would include Amendment 0075S to get the date, and in addition to line 7, which says up to 1 week. Does everyone understand?
To the date. On line 7.
On line 7, at the end, instead of to the date of the primary election, up to 1 week. To read the whole thing, is hereby authorized to make a corresponding change to the date of the primary election up to 1 week.
So then we can ask for only one bill per person, so we don't have much to do, that's all we can.
And
Yes, we can.
Sometimes we don't even get out till beginning of June, end of June, so I really,
I understand something. Okay, so we'll vote on the committee amendment, which includes 0075 plus those additional words. All those in favor of the committee amendment, say aye.
Aye.
And that's a 5-0. And the ought to pass motion on the bill as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed?
No.
And that's a 4-1. And who wants to take it out? I'll take it out.
Here's your bill. And then 366.
We didn't do 240 yet.
Right, I just want, there's more to that, so just that might be easier to get the others. I would move ought to pass 366.
Oh, you want to do 366 next?
I just think there's a lot more to 240, so it's easier to take
You
it up
think
at the end.
240 is going to take us some time?
A little bit,
A little bit.
but I'm here as long as you are, Mr. Chairman.
Whoa. I've got food upstairs. I don't know about you.
Oh.
Here it is. And it's a green one, so that. All right. This is the audit of ballots cast in the 2022 primary and general election. And Senator Susie has an amendment to that. Do I have an ought to pass motion on 366?
I would move on to pass.
Okay, and seconded by Senator Ward and Senator Susie.
So I would
we
move
have
ought to
a-
pass on Amendment 0348. And wish I had, oh, I do have it, okay. So this bill was the result of a committee that both Senator Gray and I served on. And when the final bill came out, it neglected to include one of the recommendations. And I have the report here. The committee made a series of recommendations that are captured in the bill, but the one part we omitted was that the Secretary of State may stop the general election audit if major problems are found during the primary audit. That was the language in the report, and we hadn't,
It didn't get transcribed into the bill.
it didn't get transcribed into the bill, so the language. I know we emailed it.
Trish, if you can grab that, and how many people need copies?
I apologize.
Three
I thought
plus
it had
you.
been- I said I apologize. I thought it had been sent to you, but. We can wait till Trish gets back.
It's gonna go through the House. And if there's nothing else that the House has been doing, they've been very vocal on making changes. And if I were gonna make wholesale changes, I'd up that percentage. But you already knew that. Seems warming here today. Maybe it's just me.
I don't think it's bad compared to the Senate session. That was freezing.
See, I like it cold. I wear my wool jacket and stay nice and warm.
I did 3 other bills while you were gone. Kidding, kidding.
Sorry, you already had one today.
It's fine. Extra one for the audience.
I don't know. Okay.
All right, I do apologize. I did think everyone had a copy of the amendment, but it's 0348. And as I said, the bill was as the result of a study committee that Senator Gray and I served on. As part of the recommendations, and I have the language highlighted, everything else that you see in the bill was part of our recommendations. The one omission, though, was language that would allow the Secretary of State, if there are some major problems in conduct of the primary audit, to stop the general election audit if there's something that can't be removed in their discretion. So that language starts on end of line 7. It says if the Secretary of State decides to forego the general election audit, he or she has to it starts on 6. If the Secretary is unable to resolve problems detected during the audit of the primary election, he or she may forego the general election audit. To the extent that there was something significant, a security or something that could not be resolved immediately, it would just give discretion to the Secretary to not move forward.
Second.
Okay. So we have Senator Birdsall, and then I heard Perkins Quokka first before you, Senator Ward. So, all right. Further discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 5-0. We have a motion of ought to pass as amended. And that was, well, we already did that one because, and you got, okay. Have further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And
Move
do we want
consent.
this one? Consent's fine with me. All those in favor of consent say aye. Aye. Opposed? And
Could I take this one out?
certainly. Senator Susie. That's the rewarder for all our hard work on the committee. Or I'm not sure, you can,
I'd like you to know that I have 2 emails on this bill. One person thought it was a wonderful idea to do it. The other one thought it was a shoddy use of the money that was going to take. They cancel on each other, right?
yes, ma'am. Okay, the only other one on the list was the one I think that Senator Susie's been trying to avoid, and that's
I'm trying to
Senate
avoid.
Bill 240. I'm only teasing.
Did we do 239?
Yeah.
Aren't you taking it out? No.
I can
No, you
look
aren't.
back and take you and tell you. Okay,
Consent.
all right. Senate Bill 240, and we don't have it in front of us, but the companion bill would be Senate Bill 253. And whether we want to take any action on 253 today or not, I think that you can, but it's going to be up to you guys.
If I could, 253, obviously, was my prime sponsor bill. It would seem to me that we would want to take up the two, if we're taking up Senate districts, we would want to take up both at the same time. And
Okay. We will vote on these separately, so we'll first, if your comments aren't in general on both of them, just please specify which bill, and then we'll take up 240, and then immediately thereafter, we'll vote on 253. Okay? Comments? Okay.
on 240, once there is an ought to pass, I do have 3 amendments that I think
Okay,
Trish has distributed that I was
will
hoping
move
to address.
I will move ought to pass on 240, seconded by Senator Birdsall. And you have amendments, Senator Susie?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Starting with Amendment 0278S.
Do we have those?
I know she distributed them.
Well, that doesn't mean that if she's given them to me, that I haven't had a chance to misplace them.
In that file of amendments right in front of your.
I think it may be here, in this pile. Yes, ma'am. Okay, and which amendment was
So
that?
0278S.
0278S.
Yes, and the way they were drafted by OLS was to replace all. So
Yep.
I can very discreetly describe to you what is being done with this amendment in the summary. Part of the change that was made in the amendment that, or in the bill that you had proposed, Senator, was to significantly change Senate District 16. Right now, as we've discussed, the City of Manchester is divided into 3 parts. I represent 5 of the wards. Senator D'Alessandro represents 4. Senator Kavanaugh represents 3. What this amendment proposes to do is to put the Manchester wards back into the division that they're currently in, once again to maintain those 3 districts the way they are. So in order to do that, it moves Manchester's wards 2 and 12 from District 20 back into District 16. It moves the town of Goffstown from District 16, where it was placed, back to District 20, so it resolves those 2. It moves the town of Raymond from District 16 back to District 17, where it is currently. And then it also moves the town of Pembroke for population purposes from District 17 to 15, and moves Bow from District 15 back to 16. So essentially, it makes 5 changes, and in doing so, it makes the district, it restores the district to its current size and to its current configuration. The proposed deviation on these would range, on the districts, would make District 16 a 2.22% deviation, and the other districts that it impacts, District 17 would be a 3.53, District 15 would be a minus 0.52%, and District 20 a minus 0.51%. So still keeping well within the deviation for those towns.
Read me those last 2 again.
So District 15,
Yeah.
the proposed deviation would be a minus 0.52%. District 16 would be a minus 2.22%. District 17 would be a positive 3.53%. And District 20 would be a minus 0.51%.
Okay.
So in making those changes, and as you can see, it doesn't do anything to change my own, wasn't changing my own district in any way. It restores those 2 districts as they've been for a number of years now, and also restores some portions in 15 and 17 that had been taken to make the reconfigured District 16. I think to just remove 1 ward from the city in a city that has 12, I understand in some of the smaller configurations for house districts we've had to do that, but I don't see a need to do it down to just 1 ward for the city of Manchester, our state's largest city. And I would move ought to pass on the amendment.
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Senator Perkins Coca. Any other discussion? As Senator Susie and I have talked about these before, certainly there is a number of criteria that were used in each one of the districts, and not necessarily in any particular priority order when you're looking at the districts. Some raise in priority and some fall in priority based on the districts. Certainly Manchester could be put into 2 Senate districts, and one of the reasons that at least 1 ward was taken out is that nowhere else in the Senate map do we place any senator in a primary situation with any other sitting senator, unless a senator had come to us and said that they were looking at a change. And certainly Manchester, if I were doing it and I wasn't worrying about primaries of different senators, it certainly would have been a community of interest on my part, and it would have been just in 2 districts. And there were some trade-offs made in that, so I will oppose the amendment. Any other discussion?
Just one last item. To the issue
Yes,
of
ma'am.
communities of interest, I understand your argument regarding just 2 seats, but what's before us is 3 seats that has only 1 ward of Manchester, and that now would extend from the town of Goffstown all the way out to the town of Raymond. And I would suggest to you that that's a worst example of a community of interest, because I think the people in Goffstown and Raymond probably, although being in different counties, do not view their communities as in any way related. I think the extension further out of that district in both east and west is a problem, and that's the reason I proposed the amendment.
So noted, Senator. Any other discussion? Yes, Senator.
There are 3 amendments here.
And we're only dealing with 1 now.
What about the other 2? And what is the major, is that something we can talk about? What is the major difference between the 3 amendments?
I think that they may be layered.
They're
in
very
that-
discreet.
That if we
Discrete
need
sections.
to take them up one at a time.
But if I vote for this one, not vote for this one, how do I know what's happening here?
I think if you vote for this one, you may not get to all the other 2.
Actually, the other 2 deal with other districts, so this one deals specifically with the issues surrounding the Manchester districts, so resolving 16 and 18, restoring those to what they are currently. The 2 other amendments that we're going to propose, Senator, one deals with districts 9, 10, and 12, making those more compact, so that's the southwestern part of the state, completely separate from what's being proposed here. And then the third would deal with what I view as sort of a packing issue in District 5. So this first one just deals with the 3 city, well, not the 3, the 2 city Senate district changes, and then the accompanying changes that resulted as a result of those changes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of Amendment 0278S, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. No. And 2-3, the amendment fails. Senator Susie.
The second amendment I want to take up is Amendment 0241S. And if I could, this one,
Senator Susie moves ought to pass
Pass.
on Amendment 0241S.
Second.
And Senator Perkins Coker seconds.
and if I could speak to my amendment.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So this makes 4 changes, very discrete changes, once again, to districts 9, 10, and 12. And it's an effort to make them more compact. So what it would do is to move the town of Ringe from District 12, where it is currently, to District 9. It would move the towns of Dublin, Hancock, and Peterborough from District 10 back to District 9. And it would move Temple from District 9 to District 12 for balancing purposes, and then move the towns of Fitzwilliam, Hinsdale, Richmond, Troy, and Winchester from District 9 to District 10, where they are currently. Now, unfortunately, I didn't print out a map showing you what those changes are, but essentially what they are is making the districts much more compact visually, and trying to ensure that the communities of interest that currently exist are maintained, and also trying to adhere in part to some of the county lines. I recognize that's not a primary function, but there is an argument to be made that county lines are also part of communities of interest. So that's what this amendment would resolve to do. The change in these districts, I can give you the deviation.
If you would, please.
It would make the proposed deviation for District 9 would be a minus 0.22. For District 10, it would be positive 4.98. And for District 12, minus 4.07. As I said, in this case, certainly population and balancing of population is a primary function of redistricting, but there are many other considerations that go into making up the districts. This was an effort, as I said, to maintain the districts within county boundaries to the extent that we could, and also to make the districts more compact and to have communities of interest maintained. And it's closer in part to some of the existing lines that exist.
Okay, so I believe that those percentages would be the highest positive and highest negative in the Senate map, because I think it exceeds the positive, which is in the map for District 13 right now. So I get a total of 9.06, is that right, for which the Senate map would now be instead of the 7.5 that it is?
Senator Gray, if that's the number that you came up with for the total, I didn't do a calculation of what the deviation would be for all 24 with this one change. I merely provided it for the individual districts that I was proposing.
The current negative on the map is somewhere around 2.5, negative 2.5. So, and that's where we get the 7.5 because Nashua is almost a 5.
Mm-hmm.
And your District 10 would be almost a 5, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So within reason, it's somewhere around
Mm-hmm.
total deviation of 9. That certainly is one of the things that I fought hard when I did the original maps, is to try to keep that percentage low.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, I can't support the amendment. Further discussion, Senator Perkins Coker.
We could always take more time to find other solutions to the map, but I do think this amendment in particular was something we really heard from the public in all of our public hearings, and especially, on our January 10th hearing, was that, this is a district that stretches from almost Manchester to Vermont and, contained Hinsdale and Winchester, which don't share anything in common with the communities outside of Manchester. So I think it's important to adopt this amendment, and if there's other considerations that we need to discuss further, I certainly would support taking the time to do that, Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of Amendment 0241S, say aye.
Aye.
And all
Aye.
those opposed, say nay. Nay. I got a 2-3. The amendment fails.
Did you want to talk about the third one? Or I can if you want. So the third amendment proposed here makes a few more changes, but what it primarily recognizes is that, particularly with respect to District 5, District 5 would now contain 3 colleges, and I think there's an effort to pack all of that into one district where it had not been before. So I'm happy to walk through what the changes are, but once again, it would be a greater restoration to what our existing districts look like. So starting with the town of Plymouth, moving from District 5 back to District 2 where it is currently.
Just before you do that,
I need a motion.
We should
Ought to- I'm
have the
sorry, ought
motion
to pass on amendment to.
0239S.
Correct.
Seconded by
Seconded.
Senator Perkins Quokka.
Correct. So in summary, it would move, and it sounds like it does a lot more, but it does more, as I said, to sort of restore some of the existing district. But Plymouth from district currently proposed in District 5 would go back to District 2, where it is currently. Sandwich from District 2 to District 3. Thornton from District 2 to District 1. Rumney from District 1 back to District 5. Campton from District 2 back to District 5. And then moving New London from District 5 to District 7. The towns of Grafton and Orange from District 7 to District 5. And then Croydon from District 8 to District 5.
Well, the others, you gave me the percentages right
And I'm
after
happy to
that.
do so. I saw you were writing, so.
The pen was out ready for you.
So the percentages, so this would, because the towns in that region of the state are smaller, it impacts 6 districts. So starting with District 1, its proposed deviation would be a minus 0.42%. District 2 would have a minus 3.11%. District 3 would have a positive 2.02%.
2.27?
I'm sorry, no, it would have 2.02.
7. Oh. Where did I get the 7 from?
I don't know.
02, okay, yes ma'am.
District 5 would have a proposed deviation of minus 3.85%. District 7 would have a positive deviation of 2.79%. And District 8 would have a negative 3.08%. And as I said, the proposal really is looking at the impact of District 5 and trying to pack all of those colleges. It's a significant change in the District 5 to 3 region of the state, and I didn't think that it was necessary. As I said, I certainly understand a primary objective of redistricting is balancing the size of the districts, but I think when you consider, in addition to population, communities of interest, the existing district boundaries, and particularly the way in that part of the state people are often disconnected due to travel constraints, the way our roadways are aligned. In Grafton County in particular, it's almost like 2 different places depending on where you live. I think we want to try to maintain as much of the existing structure while recognizing the need to balance population, so.
Okay, other comments? My comments on the percentages, which is what I've been commenting on, with the highest negative that we have right now around 2.5, this would put your District 2 lower than that. It would put your District 5 lower than that, your District 7 lower than that, your District 8 lower than that, and give you a total deviation of about 1.3% greater than what the current map does. And therefore, I can't support the amendment. Senator Perkins Quokka.
With all due respect, Chairman, there are, I think there are a multitude of factors we should be drawing these maps on. They should be communities of interest. They should be making sure that they are all as competitive as possible, just like our state overall, which is very evenly split amongst the political parties. It should be making sure that, the districts are shaped compactly, and District 5 as drawn has an unusual shape. So while I appreciate your points about the math and the deviation, I do think it's really important to be making these changes to reflect people's community of interest. And so, again, if further time is needed for us all to consider this and to find a way to accommodate the population deviations and communities of interest, then I would be more than happy to have further discussions on it.
In response to that, Senator, I would say that the federal laws that govern redistricting and Part 2nd, Article 9 of the New Hampshire Constitution talk about getting those populations within I think they actually say as low as possible, but don't quote me. I mean, it's certain words. And that has been interpreted by the courts in several ways for congressional 0.75 is the limit that the court puts on it. But it doesn't take away what the government says about that they should be low. And that state legislatures, the courts have said the 10%, which isn't plus or minus 5, but in most cases it comes out to plus or minus 5 or very close there too. As much as I can look in there, you know, in both of those, the Constitution in the United States and the Constitution in New Hampshire, I find it that I can't find communities of interest. I can't find a lot of the other things, compactness. Certainly, I did not discount them when I did maps, but putting a reliance more on population than some of those other things, you know, is part of, you know, there were judgments made, and sometimes one and one didn't, you know. So I did my best, and I'm sure that Senator Susie has done her best, and we have a difference on the criteria that should be used in drawing the final maps. Senator.
One final comment in our discussion. I acknowledge everything that you said. It is my opinion that whether it's a legal requirement or not, we should be attempting to draw these maps accommodating every community of interest that we can. And so I wish that criteria could weigh more heavily in us crafting these.
So noted, Senator.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right, we have Amendment 0239S. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. 2-3, the amendment fails. And are there any other amendments? We have an ought to pass motion. My amendment? We've got to take up my amendment. All right. What was the number? 0013S. Okay. This is one that was provided for the public hearing.
And published in the calendar.
And published in the calendar. I don't have a lot of things to add on this. If anyone has any questions of me, I would certainly be willing to try and answer them. Senator?
Thank you, Chair. According to some independent analysis, there is a little bit of reduced competitiveness in some of these districts. We've heard you talk about some of the criteria you crafted them on, but is there anything else that was factored in as far as your criteria in drawing these districts other than the population deviation?
Absolutely. There was lots of things, and it was different depending upon the district and the surrounding area. I've spoken here today about trying to make sure that I didn't put two senators in a primary together. I've tried to do those things. looking at the book from NCLS, you know, some states have that as a criteria and other criteria. So I reviewed all the criteria that were in there when I was making the maps. I did, you know, try to look, you know, in some cases at the existing district and see if I could accommodate that with the other criteria that I was looking at. In Manchester, certainly Senator Susie knows that my first redrawing of the Manchester was to put it into 2 Senate districts, and that certainly had an influence when we talk about the communities of interest that Manchester would fall into that, but then that was, again, competing against trying to keep these senators out from being primaried by each other. And so, and there were other criteria also in that, and looking at bedroom communities around Manchester as a criteria for communities of interest, even though we may have gotten, you know, all the way out to one that Senator Susie might take exception, I went too far. But I'm, you know, being one who drives all the way from Rochester into Concord, you know, that even that community is probably a bedroom community for Manchester when you look at it that way. So again, did I take notes when I, you know, drew the maps and saying, you know, this is the criteria that I'm using here or there? There was a general list of criteria that I looked at, including the things that were in the manual from the NCLS, and I did my best.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Okay, so we're an ought to pass motion on Amendment 013S. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
3223, you don't even, 32. Further discussion on ought to pass as amended?
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would
Yes,
just,
ma'am.
just say, I think many of us put a lot of time and effort into doing this, and I think what's most important at the end is that we are mindful of the public comments that were made. We did travel around the state, tried to make as many as I could. I think majority of the hearings I was able to attend, and there were a number of things that people pointed out. Most notably, though, this is probably one of the most important pieces of legislation that we vote on because we only do this once every 10 years. So it's really important that we do as much as we can to try to get it right. I, as I said, appreciate all of your efforts in doing this, but I think this ultimately falls short of getting it right for the citizens for another 10 years. So for that reason, I'll be voting against it.
Understood. Senator Perkins Coker.
Thank you, Chair. Like my colleague, Senator Susie, I think the Senate districts are incredibly important, and so the amendments we brought today were to try to accommodate some of that public input. People put a lot of time into making sure that they were part of this process, and I view it as an effort that we just need to make sure we, as their senators and their representatives, you know, we leave no stone unturned in terms of making sure that these are the best maps that we can draw for them. So I also feel that we have not fully done that, and so I will be voting against them.
Okay, thank you, Senator. Any other comments? Okay, the motion is ought to pass as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
3-2, and I will take that one out. Okay. We said that we would take up
Senate Bill
353.
250.
253, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, given the sequence of these, I think I could probably predict the vote, and we don't need to repeat everything that was said. I would just say, though, that I did, the bill as presented was the original districts, and I had offered an amendment to that, which was published in the calendar, which did receive some public comment and some of it favorable. It was Amendment 0009S. Obviously, I'd like the opportunity to offer the amendment, but it will depend on how we act on Senate Bill 253.
Okay. It would be my opinion to give the committee as much flexibility as we could that when this bill gets to the floor, I would like to see it tabled such that it would be available should the House not pass 240 or some other occurrence out there, would give the flexibility to have a backup. Just if you'd like to comment on that, certainly, would allow you to do that.
Sure, and I think it would be a much stronger backup if it had an ought to pass as amended beside it when it were on the calendar. If you're going to ask, I'm going to tell you what I really think. But I do understand, and I certainly, as I said, with the House districts, didn't propose something, didn't propose an amendment to the House districts. It's my understanding that there's always been an agreement between the two chambers that we would, work on the council, the congressional, all of the others, but that we would respect each other's maps. But I certainly understand, as I said, how this is proceeding, so.
Yeah. Toward my call, I would probably send it to the floor with a interim study recommendation. That way, when it's tabled, it won't have the ITL motion on it, and would make it easier for us to bring it back to the committee should we need to do that. But if you do want to move amendment 0009 before that, certainly
Well, I
would
would
allow you to do that.
need 3 votes to move ought to pass, so I would move ought to pass.
Okay.
And I would just, once again, offer 0009S. And that was the amendment that was published in the calendar. So there has been an opportunity, I think, for everyone to review these changes. As I said, tried to respect county lines where possible, tried to keep that number low, tried to respect existing districts as they stand, and would offer the amendment for your consideration once again.
Okay, discussion? All right, all those in favor of amendment 009S, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. No. 2-3, the amendment fails. And the ought to pass motion is next unless there's another amendment.
There isn't.
All those in favor of ought to pass, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say nay. Nay. And 2-3, that I will make an alternate motion of interim study. And we have a second on that. And discussion? All those in favor of interim study, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
3-2. And my plan would be to take that out myself, and then instead of making the motion for interim study, offer the motion to table. It is after 4 now. think there's others that you could do. I don't know that you want to do others right now.
We don't want to do today.
Which ones were you thinking of? Because which one? 325, we're giving Senator Kavanaugh a week to work on an amendment. This is a tax credit for private roads. Is the committee wanting to do that?
I have a comment. It feels to me like there's a bunch of private community bills, and I think there's been some very valid issues raised with them, so one idea would be to add them to the committee to study, you know, the conversation between municipalities and private associations, if that worked in 245, but.
Yes, that's fine. Just of note, okay, our New Hampshire tax system in property tax is based on the value of property. A business who, like in Rochester, can't use the municipal trash collection, is not abated, they are taxed on the value of their property. If I am going to differ in some way, like a water sewer, then I've got a different program. I go out there and I put a water meter on the house. And in many communities, if you have a municipal water meter on your house, and there's also sewer services, that you pay sewer services based on the amount of water, and again, that's per use. I think that if you do this, you're also saying, to the people who are my age and my children are long gone and they're no longer in the schools. I don't use the schools. Why should I pay, and that's very similar to the argument that they're making about the roads or trash removal, et cetera. That if a change like this is going to be made, I also don't want it to be a patchwork across the state, which would be the result that you would get, if you let the local governments go off and do this, because you think about all those people who said, I didn't understand when I bought, I didn't understand when I signed the purchase and sales agreement, what it really meant. Well, if now we double that by saying in, Dover you have this, in Rochester you have this, in Durham you have this, we've added a level of complexity, that, trying to figure this out. So I'm not opposed, to changing one of the bills into a study committee, collecting them all up, putting them in there, and, tabling the rest of them. But again, that's, going to be your guys' decision, because, I'm only one opinion of five.
Senator Birdsall.
Senator Birdsall.
I understand, but we've heard these bills for a few years now, and I do think it's an issue. There are issues that when you purchase a home, I live in a condo. When I purchased, I did not know that the roads were not built to the municipality's standards. And I doubt anyone who purchases in the home, in the HOA areas understand that. So I'm not sure that, yes, I think there are some issues that we can probably study, but I think there are some concrete issues that we need to deal with.
Concrete.
Huh?
asphalt. Senator, I agree. Certainly the solid waste issue, I hear, the waste removal issue, I hear a lot about, so I do think that merits study. I do think the bill that Senator Carson proposed today, the idea has merit. I did think there were some legitimate technical issues raised by the NHMA. So if we're gonna do it, we need to at least do it right to make sure it can be implemented. But your bill, 246, I thought was the one that seemed ready for prime time. That was the one to allow, going forward, people to start saving.
Well, that requires whoever the builder is to put money into a fund so that they will have they'll have a starter fund in the beginning to be able to at least do the regular maintenance.
So I want to pose a question.
Oh, boy.
If I own 12 acres, and the reason I want 12 acres is so I can get past the 10 for, use, and I have a 300-foot, 400-foot driveway, subdivide off an acre down by my house, now I can call that a private road because it not only services my lot, but the lot I've just subdivided. And now I want the city to give me, or the town to give me a rebate on what the maintenance costs would be to maintain my driveway.
But I don't believe that's in the bill. It's private communities.
So I name it a community. I form an LLC or whatever. I've got $100. I can go over to the Secretary of State and say, I want another LLC.
Qualified private community means a residential condominium, cooperative, open space subdivision, or other community consisting of at least 4 units.
Okay, so I have to divide it into 4 units.
I will agree that maybe we don't exact it today, but I think
Yes,
at some point, we have to pull the plug.
As I said, that I'm only one vote, and I think I'm in the minority, but that's all right.
Well, I would just be interested in your bill, and I don't know the right answer to this. I guess my main concern was, any costs we add to construction get passed directly to the first purchasers of homes. And so where we already have a housing crisis, where we already have rising prices and starter homes, is there any data about whether the solution of funding up front would save people money over time versus this assessments to replace the road? And I know that's the idea behind your bill. I just wondered if, there might be more information out there for us to sort of balance the affordable housing need around that.
I'll go to Senate Research and see if they have any information on that.
Okay, yeah, just.
From other states too, because I'm sure this is not just a problem. I think, from what I remember from our conversation, I think Florida actually has, they're starting to have an aggressive condo and HO communities because of what happened with the condo caving. So I think they're pretty aggressive, and I think they have some programs.
Okay. Thank you.
After hearing your comments, Mr. Chair, I withdraw my suggestion.
All right. The last house that I purchased was for my LLC, okay? And a particular girl that I've known since birth, you might even call her my daughter. And certainly when I was out looking for a place for them to live, that I calculated certainly the total cost that I was going to have to recoup both to charge them fair market value for it so that I stayed out of trouble with the IRS, and other things. And although we didn't end up settling on anything that had a condo fee, that certainly affected how much that I, as the purchaser, was willing to spend on a particular thing, because my my wallet only has one hole in it, and you can't put money in while you're taking it out and all this. So, it was important to me to make sure that that it was affordable and met the criteria, that it was fair market value for my daughter, the rent that the LLC charges her. So I hear these people that tell me that they didn't know about these particular fees, but when they did that purchase and sales agreement, although I didn't apply for a loan at the same time, the bank would have said, what is the total cost of ownership, how much for maintenance and other things, and calculated that in, made sure it fell under the 30% that is traditionally used.
But that's fine. You did a lot of the work for her, but when you look at like our condos, 2-bedroom, 4 floors, that's kind of brand new ownership level.
Mm-hmm.
Young couples or a young person who, in our case, it's more than young, but young people come in and that's who purchases. They don't know to ask those kind of questions. So it would be good to give them especially the young people that are trying to move into our areas, some level of cushion for the condos.
Okay, so I don't think that one's going anywhere.
Move out of exec?
Second.
Before we do this, we've got Senate Bill 248 left that we haven't had a hearing on. We've got 348 and 365. And those are our last 3 bills to hold a hearing. I did not request a second meeting this week because I didn't think we needed it. So we'll hold the hearing next Monday on those 3 bills, starting at 1 in the afternoon. And if there's anything on the FNs, that's our next priority, is to get the FNs out. So if it has an FN on it, at least tell me if you don't think it's going to be ready or why, and that will help. I should say, you can tell Trish, and she might give me a hint, so that we can get the FNs done.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else? All right, we have a motion to come out of executive session by Senator Perkins Polka, seconded by Senator Susan. Oh, you did it somewhere. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And our business being complete, we are adjourned.
I don't care as long as it happens.
Yes, ma'am.
You weren't gonna frame that, hearing report on your wall? I made that motion.
The other thing I'm trying to do is